Would you like to learn how to balance the symptoms of menopause, reduce hot flashes, not gain extra weight, improve your sex hormones, and maybe even delay menopause? My guest on this show is a triple board certified OBGYN who leads with holistic approaches to health and menopause, and she answers a lot of questions about menopause on this very special segment. So stay tuned. If you'd like to learn how to grow thicker, fuller, and stronger hair, then make sure to check out fullyvital.com. We've come up with a set of completely natural, 100% natural products that help you balance hormones and address many other reasons for hair loss to get you thicker, fuller, and stronger hair. So check out fullyvital.com for more details. If you're liking the content on this show, please make sure, if you're liking the videos on this channel, please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below so you can get notified when we release new videos. Our goal on this channel is to help you look and feel younger so you can live your best life and your most adventurous life. So make sure to subscribe to this channel. Let's get on with this episode. Hello and welcome back to the Anti-Aging Hacks podcast. Today, my guest is Dr. Anna Cabeca, DO, OBGYN, FACOG, who's a triple board certified and fellow of gynecology and obstetrics, integrative medicine, anti-aging, and regenerative medicine. She has special certifications in functional medicine, sexual health, and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. For the past 20 years, she's served 10,000 plus women in her private practice and millions more through her multiple books, online videos, and articles. When her own health took a troubling turn during menopause, she sought out the wisdom of healers around the world. Using delicious healing foods and simple lifestyle changes, Dr. Anna reclaimed her health and life. Fueled by her belief that every woman deserves to be empowered and in control of their health and life, she developed the Keto-green lifestyle, which has helped thousands of women opt out of menopause misery and experience a joyful transition to the next stage of their lives. With that said, Dr. Anna, welcome to the Anti-Aging Hacks podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Should
awesome
I call you
to be here.
Yeah, should I call you Dr. Anna or Dr. Cabeca?
Dr. Anna, that's perfect.
Okay, perfect. So give us, as we get started here, give us the story of your education and your medical practice and some background on yourself.
Great. Thank you. I trained as an OBGYN at Emory University in Atlanta, but I went to an osteopathic medical school. I was always interested in food as medicine because I grew up in a first generation American household. My mom was Middle Eastern. My dad was Portuguese. And so my mom would always say, okay, you eat the olive oil and the za'atar to make you smart. And dandelion tea helps as a diuretic and will help blood sugar and blood pressure. And these are things that I just kind of grew up with as food as medicine, but also saw my mom struggle with diabetes and following the American Diabetic Association diet plan and died prematurely at the young age of 67. And so I started asking a lot more questions. And I recognized when it came to women's health and especially women's hormonal health, that there was very little research, and most of the pharmaceutical drugs, et cetera, that were used on women were based on research done on men. And, like one size fits all type therapy, same dosages were recommended, no, not addressing how that affects their P450 enzyme systems and their hormone detoxification systems, in other words. And most drugs do have an effect on that. So it really opened my eyes. I went into research and I worked in exercise physiology for the U.S. Navy before I went to medical school. And then I was a National Health Service Corps scholar. So I opened a private clinic in Southeast Georgia, and I had some of the poorest of the poor clients in the area, but also some of the wealthiest from Sea Island that came to see me as the only female OBGYN. And it, was just quite the education to get to the underlying issues to improve the quality of life for my patients, especially when they couldn't afford it. And that honestly is really how I developed the root of my program, is what empowers us to take control of our own health, to be in charge of our body, to have our best health. And most of it is free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm really excited to have you on my program because, first of all, I've known about you for years. And secondly, you're the first OBGYN on my show. So that's exciting for me. So
Thank
I get
you.
to ask you a lot of hormone questions, which we'll get to in a few. But the first question I had for you is that you actually went through menopause twice in your life, correct?
Yeah. I think I'm finally through it.
Okay.
completely at age 56. But at 39, I was diagnosed with early menopause and I had infertility. So premature ovarian failure, irreversible infertility. I failed round after round of the highest doses of injectable meds without any significant ovarian response. And then was diagnosed with early menopause based on lab tests and, no period. And then that took me on a journey around the world and reversed that early menopause diagnosis. But even more importantly, thanks to God too, is that became pregnant naturally with my youngest daughter, who's now 14. So at age 41, the child I was told I would never be able to have.
Wow, that's a great story in and of
Mm.
itself. And so, we hear, or at least I know, that the average age for menopause in America, at least, is about 50, 51 years old. But I also hear from women that they feel or they know that their hormones start changing much earlier, not just 1 or 2 years before menopause, but up to a decade or more earlier. Is that true? And how soon do hormones actually start changing in women?
Yeah, hormones absolutely start changing. I mean, we have our cyclical changes from the time of puberty onward, right? We have cyclical changes. And then our DHEA levels start to decline in our mid to late 20s. Our progesterone levels start to decline mid to late 30s.
Hmm. Okay. So you said you got inspiration from women around the world. And in your book, you've written about Mayan women, Middle Eastern women, and certainly Japanese women that inspired you. Where did you go on your travels and what did you learn that inspired some changes and incorporations into your lifestyle and what you help your clients with?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so much, right? Because I'm first generation American. My mom was one out of nine children and a middle child. And two of the youngest also came to America. So, three out of nine children had come to America as adults. And all three died before the majority of their brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And I would have to, I had to think, and, my mom's older sister outlived her by years. And so I had to think, okay, what was happening differently and why the change? And then my mom's family is from a war-torn area in the Middle East.
Hmm.
So, stress was working against them in that, or their attitudes towards stress were different. So I started looking at that and looking at my own mom's culture in the Middle East and the Arab culture. And I started looking at dad's culture in Portugal. My dad lived to 91, but at 79, he was nearly dying. I'll be happy to share that story. And he outlived because I was able to intervene in his life. He outlived all his younger brothers and sisters based on what I now know that I didn't know when my mom was struggling. So that's what was really important, is looking at, okay, what do we do in other countries? And so looking at the blue zones, looking at food as medicine, looking at cultural attitudes. And so I loved incorporating the food as medicine internationally, but also some of the cultural attitudes and lifestyles. And biggest one being community. A sense of community is a common thread in all of the blue zones, the areas in the world where people live over 100 years. We have the highest number of people who are living over 100 years. And so that aspect of community and feeling like you belong is a significant aspect too.
Hmm. Which we seem to have lost in industrialized nations as we pursue individual freedom or individual achievements more so than community-based lifestyle. And so that's very interesting. Now, one of the main questions I guess you get asked all the time, and I have to ask you, is why do women gain weight during menopause? What's going on?
Well, one of the things is while our reproductive hormones are declining, and those are the hormones that are, really anabolic in nature, keep muscle and bone, that's key. So those are declining. Our catabolic hormones that break us down, cortisol and insulin, are increasing. So you have that shift in physiology that's intended for conservation, right? The older you get, the more, like you're going to be the last on the pecking order necessarily for food, be the children in the reproductive age, and the warriors, right? So the elders would, naturally evolve to have more conservative post-reproductive physiology. And so that's what's working against us. So our physiology works against us as we get older. So we kind of have to hack our physiology. So we biohack our physiology through like what I call the Keto-green way, the way that I developed, the way I discovered to help me lose weight that I was gaining rapidly during my second menopause. And to address all those other symptoms, the brain fog, the hot flashes, the mood swings, the memory loss, all of those symptoms.
Are these symptoms that are associated typically with menopause or premenopause, are they common? Are women in America having the same types of symptoms as women in the Middle East or in Japan or others?
Women in the US have more symptoms around menopause than anywhere else in the world, compared to Japan, compared to the Middle East. And what's important to note is that we have more, high carbohydrate eating, more of an indoor lifestyle and a drive-through lifestyle. And we also have, the endocrine disruptors, high allowance of endocrine disruptors and chemicals in our food chain.
Mm-hmm. And so you formulated plans and approaches that center on lifestyle and on nutrition as for help in countering some of these symptoms, so to speak, on menopause and potentially helping women transition to that phase of their life. What would be the foundational philosophies that you build and you write your books around, or you tell women about?
Yeah, so the foundational philosophy, it's really a head to toe approach, and it's called the Keto-green way. It's to get our body into ketosis. That will increase insulin sensitivity. To get our body, to add greens into our body so that the dark green alkalinizing vegetables, sprouts, herbs, and spices that are so medicinal in nature, that also work as natural anti-inflammatory and alkalinizers. And so that's the green aspect. That also cortisol comes into play there, the other major hormone. Cortisol, our stress hormone. So cortisol will acidify our body, and we can see that with urine pH. Cortisol increases hydrogen ion secretion across the renal tubules and will acidify the urine. So whereas oxytocin, the most powerful anti-aging and longevity hormone of our body, is the most alkalinizing, and that's where gratitude, positive thinking, intention, optimism come into play to increase oxytocin, and that can counteract even some really bad genes and genetics and physiology and environment, right? So we want to optimize oxytocin, balance cortisol, and improve insulin sensitivity. And so that's part of the Keto-green way. And with that, it's also eliminating endocrine disruptors as much as possible, minimizing carbohydrates, but using healthy ones at the right times, and then getting good night's sleep, hydrating well between meals, not with meals, so we're not diluting our digestive enzymes, and then supporting our movement. Like, we have to move. We have to continue to build muscle. As we grow older, that is important for aging and quality of life, without a doubt, right? We know that, but we've got to, and it's kind of like my mental thing today. Okay, better get, pull those weights out and do my weights again. So, how important that is for health. And, so mindset. So I always say you have to think well, eat well, drink well, move well, sleep well to be well.
Yeah, so it's entire lifestyle and nutrition. Nutrition's only being a part of it. And yeah, that's I love it, because that is the way health and nutrition and wellness is going. And I'm so glad people are taking care of their mind and mindfulness, and along with sleep and stress and so many other components that are necessary for a healthy lifestyle. So with what you've seen, Dr. Anna, are women able to alleviate symptoms? Of course, I think that's a given with what we've been talking about, but are they also able to push back the age of menopause?
Yes, absolutely. Like, I've done it twice. So early menopause diagnosis at 39, reversed that, naturally became pregnant with a child I was told I would never be able to have. And then at 48, spiraling down into that full-blown perimenopause, menopausal, hell. and reversing that through the Keto-green way. And now I'm 56 years old, a new grandma. I'm 56 and I'm finally postmenopausal. It could have been at 39, which would have shortened my life expectancy and quality of life. It could have been at 48, same thing, shortened my life expectancy and quality of life. Or now at 56. I mean, I tried to make it longer, but that's the best I could do.
That's fantastic. It's 5 years over and above the average age. So you're doing really well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the longer we maintain healthy ovarian function, the, better quality of life we have. And I have diabetes and heart disease on both sides of my family. I have those I saw as the warrior genetics in the bad environment turn into diabetes and heart disease. So I have to optimize my environment, right, for my genetic potential, to optimize my genetic potential. And so, in my 30s, my hemoglobin A1C was 5.7. Hey, that's okay. That's not pre-diabetic. But now it's 4.8 and I'm in my 50s. Wow. So that can shift so much. And that's so important. Whereas my brothers are just watching their numbers increase.
Yeah. Balloon out of control. Yeah. That's great. The HbA1c numbers are very good. And yours being 4.7. Now it's so much better. 4.8 now is so much better. So congratulations, first of all, on being a new grandma.
Thank you.
And that's great. And so I've seen some videos of yours where you talk about the Keto-green lifestyle. And I've been reading your new book called Menopause, where you talk about the foods that people can make and even the diet, the recipes that you have in that book to really help them with that. In that new book that you have, you've got 6 different meal plans. Do you care to just share a couple of anecdotes about why you've come up with 6 different meal plans and what those really help people with?
Yeah, absolutely. So through my years in creating my Keto-green lifestyle in 2014, I worked with thousands and thousands of women online and in my private community. And sometimes we get into stumbling blocks. These are the five most common pauses that I would put a client on to break through a plateau, to help them round the corner, so to speak, to change things up, to improve their metabolism. Or to address what issues they may be having. So these are 5 different 6-day pauses that I call, menu pause. That really works. So it's not just for menopausal women, but let me tell you, we're the hardest age group. We are tough physiologically. There's a huge amount of transition going on. And so if it works for us, it pretty much works for everyone. So you can do it with your family, you can do it with your spouse, you can do it with your kids. So the first plan, I call it my Keto-green Extreme Plan, which follows an autoimmune protocol. So that means no nightshades, no peppers, very low inflammatory Keto-green. All my plans are grain-free and dairy-free, and usually loaded with healthy greens that are low carbohydrate. The second plan, and so the first plan is really good, especially if you have Hashimoto's, if you have MS, an autoimmune disease. The first plan's and it's a great place to start regardless. The second plan is really designed to address a couple key issues that many people, when they go keto, get constipated or have been dealing with constipation their whole life. And number 2, we know the increased amount of plant diversity that we have in our diet, the improved gut microbial diversity we have, which is associated with resilience and a stronger immune system. So that's the other thing. And so the second plan is completely plant-based. It is a Keto-green, low carbohydrate, vegan 6-day plan. And the reason is that I really focused in my last book, Keto-green 16, and this one, Menopause, because so many of my vegetarian and vegan clients don't get enough protein and fat. So I wanted to make sure that, and get way too many carbs, like are drinking fruit smoothies all day, right? And they just can't do that and be asymptomatic. We really have to optimize the physiology. So that's a change up. And the third plan goes the pendulum in the opposite direction. And this is really good, especially if someone's had psoriasis or, eczema, skin disorders, or anytime they eat plants, they get reactive. So they have small intestinal bowel overgrowth, have trouble digesting, get tremendous bloating. So it's more of a carnivore plan. So it's a complete carbohydrate pause plan. So it is carnivore. But a healthy nose to tail carnivore to show people how to do that and to spice it and to make it really good. And then the fourth plan is a cleanse. It's all smoothies and bone broth for 6 days. And it really goes a long way to decrease inflammation, to, clear up any adult acne, skin conditions. The skin's a reflection of the gut. So the cleanse is a favorite for our audience for a quick fix. And then the fifth plan is because so many times people have gotten stuck in the keto-green lifestyle or keto lifestyle or whatever camp they've been in. And I actually have to carb them up, especially my athletes and my uber disciplined individuals that are like, I'm afraid to put a blueberry in my mouth. I'm like, okay, so we have to carb up, and I can actually, improve sleep with that plan and just help you break through a plateau when you've been stuck and you actually need to have some feast days, healthy feast days.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing those. I love that you focus on ketosis and getting people's insulin sensitivity back in order, because that is so important. We are running rampant with insulin these days, too many carbs. It's just, and that also causes a breakdown in protein and damages, attacks your fats and your proteins. So your collagen is getting eaten up by these extra sugars floating around in your bloodstream that's aging you faster. So many negative impacts of eating too many sugars. On the flip side, people can do ketosis, at least for short periods. What is your perspective on how long people need to keep in a ketosis state or in a very low carb state, and how should they flip-flop between the two?
It really depends on what you're dealing with. It can take people a long time to get into insulin sensitivity. To get into ketosis because they're so insulin resistant. Mm-hmm. So it can take people a long time. But I do give a 10-80-10 rule. So 10% fasting, 80% keto-green, 10% feasting. And that gives you flexibility. I'll tell you, Faraz, I was once asked about Kourtney Kardashian eating the keto diet, and on Sundays she would have pancakes. But they said, well, what do you think about her having these cheat days? And I said, I consider those feast days because, number one, she's not having negative side effects. She continues to get results. She is motivated during the week, and her Sunday inspires her. If it starts not working for her, she'll switch it up naturally because she won't want to feel bad the next day. So I consider those feast days and not cheat days. And I think we have to change the way we think about it. And I think that really helps.
Okay, fantastic. Got it. So we talked about ketosis and insulin resistance and how to bring that into balance, HbA1c levels, sugar levels in your bloodstream. I also want to touch on inflammation. And you made a point in your book about how chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the root causes behind most diseases out there. And I totally agree with that. But I was unaware of the connection between inflammation and menopause. What is that connection?
Yeah, inflammation and menopause. I think that's one of the biggest things because one of our anti-inflammatory hormones, like what protects us, we see a lot of, in general, because of decline in our anabolic hormones, progesterone, pregnenolone, DHEA, testosterone, even estrogen. And so that's one big thing, but also we're becoming more insulin resistant as we get older, and cortisol increases as we get older over time. But with added stress, we deplete cortisol too. So there can be, that chronic underlying inflammation going on in our body. So I think that's really important to understand that while that can be a natural part of aging, we can optimize our physiology through changing things up through our lifestyle and supplementation and bioidentical hormone usage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I want to get into that next, but I have one more question. I appreciate that you focus on insulin, you focus on cortisol, you focus on oxytocin as measures to improve some of the symptoms with menopause and beyond. Now, I assume they have downstream effects with your progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, and they're actually improving those markers of sex hormones as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And, I know that what is the institute, the female research study that was done? It's called
the Women's Health Initiative.
Women's Health Initiative that was done. They had thousands of women they enrolled in multiple arms of the study, which was really cool to see. Are there any researchers that are kind of trying to redo some of that studies?
Oh,
And
there
even
happened.
there
Yeah,
have been?
recently. Yeah. Then it looked at, the estrogen arm of the study. The estrogen alone arm had no increased risk of breast cancer. And that was even with an oral estrogen. So we've seen that definitely pan out. And the other thing was just teasing through, it was the progestin, the synthetic progestin that had the negative effect that correlated with the breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't the estrogen. So I think estrogen would, evolved. Estrogen, has evolved to be the bad guy, and it's not
Right.
the bad guy.
Right. That's what threw everybody in a loop 20 years ago, and everybody stopped, right, taking estrogen. But now we're learning, as you're saying, estrogen is not the bad guy. The synthetic progesterone was maybe what was causing issues. And so with women and bioidentical hormones, let's say they follow the approach, right? They follow the guidelines, they do the keto-green diet and the lifestyle, and they make sure the nutrition's on par, the insulin's under control, cortisol's under control. If they do want to then engage with a bioidentical hormone or HRT, hormone replacement, how would you start them up, and at what age would you start them up?
Well, I think that we know there's the window of time, but I typically start with, like, if a patient's coming in perimenopause and she's having the symptoms of mood swings, worsening PMS, I do this. I put her through, in my book, The Hormone Fix, my first book. You can definitely start with any of my books. But The Hormone Fix, I really go into the many ways that our hormones are disrupted and what to do about it, plus a very simple 10-day plan, a keto-green detox. So I would start them on the keto-green detox. It takes away inflammation. I would supplement with my Mighty Maca Plus, which I know increases DHEA and progesterone and helps your body eliminate toxins safely. So it has phase 1 and phase 2 and detoxifiers as well as adaptogens. So I would start them on typically 1 to 2 scoops a day of that, have them do my detox, check their labs, bring them back in and evaluate their labs at that point. But when they come back in, time and time again for us, they've always said, Dr. Anna, I feel 90% better. I feel 100% better. I feel better than I have in years.
Fantastic.
And that's without ever writing a prescription. And depending on their age, if they're in their 40s to 50s, maybe I won't do anything at that point, or continue the adaptogenic support. Maybe make sure that they're on a good omega fish oil, do any additional multivitamin minerals that I need to do, support thyroid. And maybe I would add some bioidentical progesterone. I created a cream that contains progesterone and pregnenolone. There's no pharmaceutical that does this. Plus, I added tripeptide and some essential oils. Because of my journey and my background as a chemist, I also wanted natural, clean products without endocrine disruptors. So I might add that second half of their cycle, it's called my balance cream, and I would add that in. And so can do that. And then as time, so I start again, then I always say ounce prevention's worth a pound of cure. So I may be using my Julva cream, which has DHEA in it. So using Julva, and so starting with some DHEA through Julva transdermally, and then progesterone and pregnenolone. And then and I would add in some testosterone and estrogen depending on the results. But often it's in their 50s when I need to start adding that, but it really depends again on the individual and their physiologic chemistry. But if we're doing transdermals, they're very safe to start, even if even older patients. And again, you have to look at risk factors, and we want to avoid oral estrogen, especially after age 55, because we know it increased risk for blood clots. So we avoid oral estrogens and we avoid synthetic progestins and only do bioidentical. But that's the small 5 to 10% when we're doing hormones. That's 5 to 10% maybe. The 90% is keto-green lifestyle.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. So you're seeing drastic changes just without even the hormones, just with the keto-green lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And I love that you're an OBGYN that's focuses so much on the holistic side of things, and you're putting them on the right plans and then measuring hormones before you go to the next level. And I think what you just said is for people that are listening, you don't do synthetic progesterone or even synthetic estrogen, right? It's all bioidentical. What's the difference for people listening if somebody doesn't know out there?
Bioidentical is like, for example, if we were to supplement with insulin or thyroid, we use bioidentical or body identical, right? It's just like what our body's making. So it's biologically familiar to
Mhm.
us versus a synthetic.
Okay, fantastic. And so most of it is the keto-green lifestyle, and then you can add the hormones. And the way you add the hormones is you've got not synthetic, bioidentical topical progestin and progesterone cream, which is called,
Pregnenolone and progesterone.
okay,
Pregnenolone and progesterone.
and
Mhm.
that's called Julva.
That's called balance cream. And
That's
Julva
called
is my
balance.
DHEA. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I was checking your website to see all the different creams. So you've got the DHA cream, you've got the Julva, and then is there something you put on the face too? Or those are the two?
So balance cream, my progesterone pregnenolone cream, I do put it on the face too.
Okay, fantastic. And like you said, you've added
Oh,
peptides.
yeah. And then I have Julva. Okay, so Julva is for the vulva,
Okay.
J instead of V, Julva vulva. But
Yeah.
I created a Julva kiss formula for the upper lips because, lip line, lip wrinkles, smile lines,
Hmm.
minimize those a little bit. Good with the laugh lines, just don't want the lipstick bleed lines. Anyone listening who knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's why I created the kiss formula.
Okay, so what's the benefit of doing Jolva down there and rubbing it in your nether regions?
Because as we age, just like we'll get wrinkles around our face and we lose muscle strength, the same is happening to the pelvic floor. And we'll get clitoral atrophy. No one talks about the clitoris. I mean, it's really the most underappreciated organ in our body. And for me, it's the most valuable one, right? Because it brings pleasure. There's 8,000 nerve endings, over 8,000 nerve endings in the clitoris. And that atrophies as we get older. Heck no, let's stop that in its track and keep that healthy, because that is a pleasure organ. And then with orgasm, with climax, with pleasure, we increase oxytocin, the most anti-aging hormone of our body. So I created Julva because I wanted something without a prescription that clients could use that was clean, therapeutic, and free of endocrine disruptors. And so it has Julva and it has DHEA and plant stem cells from the alpine rose, as well as emu oil, coconut oil, and shea butter. And so it's a very synergistic, penetrating cream that works to reverse the hands of time. I have someone who's been using my Julva cream now for a few years, since it first came out in 2016. And she wrote me not too long ago. She said, Doctor, she's 65 years old, and she went to her gynecologist, and her gynecologist said, "Hey, Sharon, you've got the vagina of a 25-year-old. Tell Dr. Anna to keep making this stuff." She said, "I'm going to get some."
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. I mean, that's a marker of longevity, because as we get older, the tissue thins out and naturally becomes drier. So we can reverse that. And this is the best thing. And I've worked with compounding and using different formulas. And this is the best thing, most effective cream that I could create.
Fantastic. Okay, so Dr. Anna, we talked about DHA and pregnenolone and
Pregnenolone.
pregnenolone and progestin is the other one?
Progesterone.
Progesterone.
Yep.
And okay. Now you said you also do estrogen and testosterone therapy, if needed. How do you determine the need for estrogen and or testosterone later on?
Yeah. So always, I would say treat the patient, not the labs. But you look at labs and you look at their symptom, hormone toxicity questionnaire, which is in my first book, the hormone quiz, and it's all the hormone fix. And it's also on my website. It's the hormone toxicity quiz on my website you can take. And so if you score, relatively high, you've got a detox. And depending on your age, if we're over 50, 60, we definitely benefit from a combination hormone therapy. So progesterone, testosterone, a little bit of estrogen, and DHEA. We definitely benefit, again, depending on our lifestyle. If we're out working with horses all day in nature, grounding, getting sunrises, sunsets, our body is going to be more physiologically fit, sound, and resilient, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see that more than ever. That's obvious. And so, in with rare exception, a little bit of hormone therapy, and I may do it in a transdermal, I may do it in a troche, may do it in a vaginal. The nice thing about a cream is that you can use it vaginally or, on the vulva and in the vagina as well. And, it can rotate sites because you don't want to saturate receptor sites. So you want to rotate where you're using it.
I see. So you're saying for estrogen or testosterone, you can compound a cream with a compounding pharmacy and then make it for the individual specifically.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't have to inject anything or take oral estrogen or anything, right? Which doesn't have a good record from what I understand. Is that correct?
Right. With both oral and estrogen and testosterone, the metabolites can increase inflammation.
Okay, got it. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Anna. We're coming up on time, but I want to ask you, what's so special about the maca, the mighty maca formula you've got?
Thank you. Well, first it was from my own journey around the world where I learned about the different superfoods, and I attribute that and God's good grace to being able to reverse early menopause and become pregnant. And so my formula, and because I just felt so good using this combination of ingredients, I started using it in my medical practice. And then I started getting, my patients were loving it. And what we noticed was that increase in DHEA, increase in progesterone, decrease in blood sugar and hemoglobin A1C, decrease in appetite, improvement in willpower and energy, clean energy, because it's not a caffeine supplement, right? So it's an adaptogenic supplement. And so maca, I use organic Peruvian maca, which is just one of those superfoods that are amazing. And it's known to be an adaptogen, so supporting your adrenal glands and supporting your genetic potential in a way, and then added other genetic adaptogens like turmeric, resveratrol, quercetins in there.
Love them.
And plus other superfoods, grapeseed extract, cat's claw herb, greens and enzymes for digestion and fiber. And so it has a beautiful combination. And because of science and my journey around the world, I just wanted it for me and my family. And then, I had my first batch, I had to order 500 to get it mass produced. That was a small batch back then. Now we order in the tens of thousands, but it was, so I was like, okay, maybe my patients, maybe patients will benefit from this. And it just grew by word of mouth. And now I have physicians around the world that recommend it. I'm really humbled. It came from my own tragedy, my own story, my own trauma, and been able to help so many people.
Yeah, those are the best. Those are the best stories. I guess one follow-on question with testosterone. I know that certain women take it. What are the chances of it causing acne or body hair or hair loss when they do supplement with testosterone?
Well, yeah, because you got to know, if we're supplementing with a hormone, you got to know where it's metabolizing to. So testosterone especially in high cortisol or high stress situation, is going to convert to dihydrotestosterone. And that's going to cause acne and hair loss. And that is an awful place to be. I used to suffer from hair loss to here. And so it's all about, restoring healthy physiology to make, to really make the difference. So that's why I even created a hair product. I love doing this stuff. But anyway, I even created a hair product to help with hair loss. But that's a really big issue for women. And plus you can get hoarseness of the voice, clitoromegaly, and sometimes those are irreversible changes. So you just have to be very cognizant. Too much is not good. Plus you want your body to fluctuate. When we ovulate, we get a peak in testosterone and it comes down. So you have those ups and downs. For women, this high testosterone level may be good for a time, but for a long time, that initial surge in libido or that initial surge in energy may start to require more and more levels of testosterone. And with that, you're suppressing your body's own natural production. So while I will sometimes use injections and pellets, depending on the season of a woman's life, I really prefer to go to topicals and troches.
Fantastic. Well, you've covered it all, and I'm glad you're helping women with this special phase in their life. Now, I want to ask you this question again. So women can, with all the techniques that you described, delay menopause significantly by more than, I don't want to say numbers, but they can delay menopause when they follow some of these protocols.
Well, what we've seen in my girlfriend doctor community and my Magic Menopause online program, which is an 8-week program, during that time, clients will have their periods just restore, cycle. Some people postmenopausal way past, but I have women now who have been following me for decades. And they just will tell their stories. And I just encourage you to come into our girlfriend doctor community, to listen in, to join the Magic Menopause program and see what your potential is. I always feel like, what is the next right step for me? What is my potential? How can I even be better, stronger? What's the missing link, or maybe I just need some accountability because I know what to do. But to hear some of these stories from the women in my community, it's amazing. I have a woman in her 70s, and she recently moved and had all this stuff going on. And she said, I couldn't have done it. And she goes, I know that 10 years ago, there's no way I've been able to handle this amount of life stress. If it wasn't for, she said, well, it wasn't for you, Dr. Anna. It wasn't for your programs, learning the Keto-green way and being able to test, not guess. She said, I don't know where I'd be. And I love hearing that story because you're never too old. And then my younger clients in their 40s, they may have been without a period. I've had clients without a period for 2 or 3 years and their periods come back in. I'm like, that is longevity. That is good. Let's do a vaginal ultrasound. Let's just look at things. Let's look at the uterus and look at the ovaries. We always want to do that. But that is a good thing. That is a good thing.
That's a great thing. Fantastic, Dr. Anna. Thank you for doing what you do. Where can people get a hold? I know you've said a few things about products as well, but where can people get a hold of you? What website can they go to? What about your social handles? Give us everything.
Yeah, so easy to find me at dranna.com. So DRANNA.com, dranna.com. And I'm on social media at The Girlfriend Doctor. So we also have a free Keto-green community on Facebook. So be sure to join me there. I've got tons of good information and free resources at dranna.com.
Yeah, folks, Dr. Anna has been in the game for a long time, and just going to her website and checking out so many resources. I spent a couple hours there this morning. So thank you, Dr. Anna, for coming on the show, and we really appreciate you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.